Introduction: The Invisible Divide. Most people believe the top 1% were born different. They assume it's about better connections, better timing, or better luck. But here is the uncomfortable truth: the difference is not access. It is perspective. Two people can earn the same income, live in the same city, and graduate from the same school. Yet, 10 years later, one is financially free while the other is still trading time for survival. What happened? This is not about hype. It is not about flex culture. It is not about overnight success. It is about mental architecture. The wealthy are playing a different game. They use a different decision filter. They operate with a different emotional discipline. Here is the line that changes everything: the 1% do not chase money. They design systems that make money chase them. This is mental reprogramming. Once you see the game clearly, you can never unsee it. So, ask yourself, when you think about money, what do you feel? Pressure, anxiety, excitement. The 99% react emotionally to money. The 1% respond strategically. That is the invisible divide. Wealth is not built in the market. It is built in identity. If you see yourself as someone who earns money, you will trade effort for income. If you see yourself as someone who builds assets, you will start thinking in leverage. And leverage is where wealth accelerates. The average person asks, how much does it cost? The 1% asks, what does it produce? The average person asks, can I afford it? The 1% asks, does this expand or shrink my future? Different questions. Different destinies. Before we begin the 7 secrets, understand this: the wealthy measure life in decades. The average person measures life in pay cycles. One builds stability. The other builds urgency. Urgency creates bad decisions. Bad decisions create volatility. And volatility keeps people trapped. Now, let's enter the game. Secret number 1: buy control, not status. Most people buy things to be seen. The 1% buy things to gain control. There is a profound difference. Status purchases are emotional. Control purchases are strategic. The average person finances a luxury car to feel ahead. The wealthy buy assets that generate income to stay ahead. One depreciates. One compounds. Status is expensive to maintain. Control is expensive to build but cheap to sustain. The 1% obsess over optionality. Optionality is power. It is the ability to say no to a toxic job, a bad investment, or a rushed opportunity. Optionality comes from assets. Assets create cash flow. Cash flow creates control. Control creates calm. And calm protects wealth. Real wealth reduces the need for validation. If you are constantly trying to prove you are rich, you probably aren't. There are 3 levels of financial control. 1. Expense control, you know where your money goes. 2. Income control, you have multiple income streams. 3. Time control, you no longer depend on one source to survive. The 1% obsess over reaching level 3. Time is the ultimate luxury. Not cars, not watches, not mansions. Time to choose, time to think, time to build. Freedom does not come from a high salary. It comes from independence from a salary. Action step: calculate your freedom runway. Divide your current liquid savings by your monthly expenses. How many months do you have? The wealthy aim for years. Once you can survive without reacting emotionally, you can make bold decisions rationally. Secret number 2: use leverage relentlessly. Most people try to get rich by working harder. The 1% get rich by working smarter once, and then letting systems do the heavy lifting forever. Effort does not scale. Leverage does. You can only work so many hours. But a system works while you sleep. That is the pivot point between the 99% and the 1%. The wealthy understand 4 types of leverage. 1. Capital leverage, money making money. 2. People leverage, other people's skills multiplying your output. 3. Technology leverage, code, automation, and digital scale. 4. Brand leverage, reputation converting trust into opportunity. Most people rely only on effort. The 1% stack leverage. Consider 2 consultants charging $200 per hour. Consultant A works 50 hours a week. Consultant B records a premium online program, builds a digital funnel, hires a support team, and sells that program globally. Consultant A caps at 50 hours. Consultant B decouples income from hours. Leverage feels slow at first because you build before you earn. The 99% want immediate returns. The 1% are comfortable building invisible infrastructure because they think in decades. Stop asking, how can I earn more this month? Start asking, what can I build that pays me for the next 10 years? Action step, list your current income sources. For each one, ask, is this linear or leveraged? Linear means time for money. Leveraged means system-driven. Your goal over the next decade is to shift the balance. Secret number 3, master delayed gratification. This is where most people lose. Not because they are incapable, but because they are impatient. The 1% understand something brutal, comfort now costs freedom later. When you get a raise, what is the first instinct? Upgrade. Better apartment, better car, better vacations. Lifestyle inflation is seductive. It whispers, you deserve this. But the 1% ask a different question, does this upgrade my lifestyle or my leverage? The wealthy delay visible rewards to accelerate invisible growth. They don't rush to look successful. They rush to become unshakable. The 99% measure progress by what they can display. The 1% measure progress by what they can't lose, assets, equity, ownership, cash flow. Delayed gratification is not about deprivation. It is about dominance over impulse. Impulse is expensive. Impulse buys depreciate. Impulse decisions increase liabilities. Let's look at the math. You want to spend $40,000 on a car. Short-term thinking says, it's only $700 per month. Long-term thinking asks, what does $40,000 become in 20 years invested at 8%? The answer is over $186,000. Now the decision feels heavier. You are not choosing between a car and nothing. You are choosing between a car and future wealth. Action step, for the next 90 days, delay every non-essential purchase by 48 hours. Give yourself time to calculate opportunity cost. You will be shocked how many purchases disappear. Invest that gap. Secret number 4, redefine risk. Most people think the 1% take bigger risks. They don't. They take calculated risks, and they avoid the risks that quietly destroy the middle class. Here is the twist, the 99% call investing risky. The 1% call stagnation risky. The 99% fear market volatility. The 1% fear being dependent. The 99% fear losing money. The 1% fear losing time. The real risk is living a life where one paycheck controls your choices. If your income disappears tomorrow, what happens? Panic. Scrambling. Borrowing. That fragility is risk. But it feels normal because it is common. The 1% divide risk into 2 categories. 1. Volatile risk, short-term fluctuations. 2. Structural risk, long-term vulnerability. Most people obsess over volatile risk, stocks might crash, crypto might drop. But they ignore structural risk. What if my industry gets automated? What if inflation erodes my savings? The wealthy accept volatility to eliminate fragility. They endure temporary swings to avoid permanent dependence. When the market drops 20%, most people panic. The 1% see discount pricing. They have liquidity ready. They deploy capital when others retreat because they prepared in calm seasons. Preparation changes reaction, and reaction determines outcome. Action step: ask yourself, if my current income stream vanished, how quickly could I rebuild? That question reveals resilience. The 1% design their lives for resilience, multiple income streams, multiple skills, multiple networks. Secret number 5, multiply value, not income. Most people obsess over salary. The 1% obsess over value creation. Income is what someone pays you. Value is what the market rewards you for. And value scales. Salary negotiates. Value compounds. If you earn $100,000 per year, you have income. If you create a system that produces $100,000 per year without your daily involvement, you have value. You don't get rich by working more hours. You get rich by increasing the leverage of your value. The market doesn't pay you for effort. It pays you for usefulness. If your work is easily replaceable, your income ceiling remains limited. The wealthy constantly ask, how can I become harder to replace? They build rare skills. They combine competencies. They stack advantages. For example, marketing plus data plus psychology. Technology plus communication plus strategy. That intersection creates asymmetric value. An asymmetric value commands disproportionate rewards. Ownership is the multiplier. Employees trade time. Owners trade decisions. Salary is capped by negotiation. Ownership is capped by performance. The 1% seek equity. Equity means you benefit from growth, not just labor. Action step: stop thinking, how do I get paid more? Start thinking, how do I create something that pays repeatedly? Recurring revenue, recurring value, recurring relevance. Secret number 6, master emotional control. Money is not logical. It feels logical. It looks mathematical. But wealth is deeply emotional. This is where most people quietly lose. You will never outperform your emotional discipline. Not in markets, not in business, not in life. The average investor panics during downturns. The average earner inflates lifestyle after bonuses. The average entrepreneur overextends during excitement. Emotion drives decisions. And emotional decisions are expensive. The 1% train come. Not because they lack emotion, but because they manage it. There are 4 emotional traps that destroy wealth. 1. Fear causes panic selling. 2. Greed causes overleveraging. 3. Comparison causes lifestyle inflation. 4. Ego causes stubborn decisions. The wealthy design systems to reduce emotional interference, automatic investing, diversification, clear asset allocation. When systems are in place, emotions have less power. Wealth building is boring. Consistent investing, slow growth, gradual accumulation. It lacks drama. And the human brain craves stimulation. The 99% introduce excitement into their finances through speculation and day trading. But excitement increases variance, and variance increases fragility. The 1% embrace boredom because boring strategies are predictable. And predictability compounds. Action step: when you feel a strong financial impulse, pause. Wait 24 hours. Ask 3 questions. Is this aligned with my long-term plan? Is this emotional or strategic? What would the commerce version of me do? Secret number 7, build legacy, not lifestyle. Here is the final shift, and it is the one most people resist because it requires maturity. The 1% don't build wealth to impress their peers. They build wealth to outlive themselves. The 99% think in lifestyle. The 1% think in legacy. Lifestyle asks, what can I enjoy now? Legacy asks, What will survive me? When you think in lifestyle, you optimize for visibility. When you think in legacy, you optimize for durability. Durability is slow. Durability is patient. Durability compounds. Lifestyle wealth disappears in one generation. Legacy wealth expands across 3. The wealthy don't just pass down money. They pass down systems, knowledge, standards, discipline, and financial literacy. Untrained wealth evaporates, but educated wealth multiplies. Legacy thinking removes ego from wealth. When you build for children, for family, for community, decisions become calmer, less impulsive, less flashy, and more strategic. You stop asking, how does this make me look, and start asking, how does this protect future stability? Action step: write down what financial freedom truly means to you. Is it covering expenses with passive income? Working on projects you choose? Supporting family? Now reverse engineer. What must you build today to make that future inevitable? The implementation, identity and execution. Knowing the 7 secrets is one level. Becoming the type of person who lives them daily is another. Strategy without identity collapses. The 1% don't just use these principles. They see themselves as long-term builders. Identity drives behavior. Behavior drives results. Results reinforce identity. If you see yourself as bad with money, you will subconsciously prove it. If you see yourself as someone who builds wealth, your decisions begin aligning automatically. Most people want millionaire results with middle-class habits. They want asset growth while upgrading lifestyle every year. They want leverage but avoid discomfort. The 1% accept discomfort early because they see it as temporary. The average person avoids discomfort and lives with long-term pressure instead. Pressure compounds. Discomfort fades. Which one do you choose? The power of subtraction wealth is often built by subtraction before addition. The 1% remove distractions. They remove liabilities. They remove toxic partnerships. They remove ego-driven decisions. Complexity increases fragility, and fragility destroys momentum. Ask yourself, what in your financial life is adding stress instead of strength? Eliminate it. The time horizon advantage: money can be earned. Money can be lost. Money can be rebuilt. Time cannot. The true 1% do not obsess over money first. They obsess over time allocation. Most people trade time for money. The wealthy trade money for time. That is the inversion. The 1% think in decades. The 99% think in weekends. Short-term thinking optimizes comfort. Long-term thinking optimizes freedom. You don't need to outwork everyone. You need to outlast them. Longevity beats intensity. Conclusion: the choice. You now understand the framework. Control. Leverage. Patience. Risk intelligence. Value multiplication. Emotional discipline. Legacy. Everything comes down to one thing: choice. Knowing how the 1% think does not automatically move you there. Thinking differently is a daily decision, not a one-time revelation. Right now, you stand at a psychological crossroads. One path is comfortable. Keep earning, keep spending, keep reacting, keep drifting. It is familiar. It requires no confrontation. And it leads exactly where most people end up. The other path is intentional. It requires restraint when others indulge. It requires patience when others rush. It requires calm when others panic. It requires long-term thinking when culture screams short-term gratification. That path is quieter, but it compounds. The 1% are not separated by access. They are separated by decisions made consistently over time. Daily micro-decisions. Invest or consume. Build or scroll. Learn or distract. Plan or react. Each decision feels small, but small decisions repeated thousands of times become identity. Identity becomes trajectory. Trajectory becomes destiny. You do not need millions to think like the rich. You need clarity. You need discipline. You need a time horizon longer than your impulses. The wealthy are not magical. They are methodical. And method beats motivation. Starting today. 1. Automate investment before spending. 2. Increase your financial literacy weekly. 3. Reduce one recurring expense. 4. Build one scalable skill. 5. Think in 10-year outcomes, not 10-day feelings. Imagine yourself 20 years from now. Financially stable. Emotionally calm. Strategically positioned. Not because of luck, but because you align behavior with principle. That version of you exists, but it requires present-day discipline. The top 1% are not ahead because they ran faster. They are ahead because they started earlier and stopped quitting. And you can start now. Right here. Right after this moment. If you continue your current financial behavior for the next decade, are you satisfied with where it leads? If the answer is no, change it. Because the blueprint is clear, the principles are timeless, and the choice is yours. Think like the rich. Act like a builder. Invest like a strategist. Protect like a guardian. And let time do what it has always done, reward those who respect it. Introduction: The quiet fear. Most people wake up every morning with the same quiet fear. Not panic, not terror, but a low, constant tension. They fear that if they stop, everything stops. The paycheck, the stability, the sense of control. They've been told this is normal. They've been told this is adulthood. But deep down, something feels wrong. Working harder doesn't make the fear go away, it sharpens it. This book begins with the truth most people never hear: if your income requires your presence, you're not being paid. You're being rented. And rented things are always temporary. In this book, Work Once, Get Paid Forever, you will learn why the wealthiest people on earth do not trade time for money. You will learn how they design income that continues without them, and how ordinary people quietly build assets that work long after the effort is finished. This is not about quitting your job tomorrow. This is not about shortcuts or hype. This is education, perspective, and long-term thinking. This is about design. Designing income. Designing leverage. Designing a life where effort compounds instead of resets. Here is the punchline that frames everything: the rich do not work harder. They work fewer times. They build once, they improve once, they own once, and then the system pays them again and again. You will learn why saving alone keeps people stuck. Why banks reward passivity and punish patience. Why assets are machines, not investments. Why effort without ownership is the most expensive habit in the world. And how to start building income that doesn't disappear when you rest. Each chapter removes one illusion. Each chapter replaces it with a principle. By the end, you will never look at work, money, or time the same way again. If you are listening to this right now, it's not an accident. You already feel the tension. The question is not whether you work hard. The question is whether your work remembers you when you're gone. Because here's the uncomfortable truth: if you must keep working to keep earning, you haven't built wealth. You've built dependence. And dependence is fragile. Let's begin where every trap begins, with the lie you were taught first. Chapter 1: The biggest lie about work. From the moment you were young, the message was simple: work hard. Be reliable. Be consistent, and everything will work out. But no one ever explained how. No one explained that there are two types of work, one that expires and one that endures. Most people are trained for the first. They work, they get paid, and the value disappears the moment the work stops. That is not a flaw in the system. That is the system. Here is the sentence that changes everything. If your work cannot be separated from your time, it cannot compound. Compounding is what creates wealth, and time-bound work cannot compound. You can work harder. You can work longer. You can work smarter. But you still reset to zero every morning. The wealthy saw this early. They asked a different question: what can I build once that keeps producing value? Not later. Not someday. Forever. This is the difference between labor and leverage. Labor is effort traded. Leverage is effort multiplied. One is fragile. The other is permanent. Most people never escape because they are taught to optimize effort, not outcomes. They chase promotions instead of systems, raises instead of ownership, security instead of resilience. And security that depends on constant effort is not security. It's a treadmill. Chapter 2: Why saving alone will never make you free. You were taught that saving money was the responsible move. Spend less, save more, put it away, wait. On the surface, that advice sounds wise. But there is a quiet problem hiding inside it. Saving preserves effort. It does not multiply it. When you save, you protect what you already earned. But you do not change how money behaves. You are still dependent on future work to add more. Saving is defensive. Freedom is offensive. The wealthy understand this distinction deeply. They do not disrespect saving. They simply do not confuse it with wealth building. Saving keeps you safe from disaster. Assets set you free from dependence. If your plan relies on slowly storing cash and hoping it's enough someday, you are still betting on time you don't control. Inflation quietly eats it. Opportunities pass while it sits. And your life remains tied to labor. This is why people can save for decades and still feel trapped. They did everything right. And yet nothing fundamentally changed, because saving without leverage is like stacking bricks without mortar. It looks solid until pressure arrives. The system praises saving because it's predictable. Predictable money is easy to manage. Predictable people are easy to plan around. But predictability is not the same as power. Power comes from ownership. Ownership of systems. Ownership of distribution. Ownership of things that continue when you stop. Cash is idle potential. Assets are active machines. Cash waits. Assets work. Cash must be protected constantly. Assets protect themselves by producing. This is why wealthy people don't hoard cash. They deploy it. Because when capital is scarce, leverage matters more. Chapter 3: Why banks reward waiting and punish. Builders. You were told the bank was the safest place for your money. A vault. A shelter. A responsible choice. For short-term safety, that can be true. But safety is not the same as progress. Banks are designed to protect money, not to grow freedom. Banks love predictability. They love deposits that sit still. They love balances that don't move. They love customers who wait, because waiting benefits them. Your idle cash becomes their working capital. While your money rests, it is lent. It is leveraged. It is multiplied. Just not for you. This is why interest rates on savings are so low. Not because growth is impossible. Because growth is not the bank's goal. The bank's goal is control. The safest place for your money is often the most expensive place to keep it. Not in invisible fees, but in opportunity cost. Every year your cash sits idle, you lose compounding time, purchasing power, and momentum. Inflation does the rest quietly. No announcement. No warning. Just erosion. This is why wealthy people don't ask, "Where's my money safest?" They ask, "Where does my money learn to work?" That question changes everything. Because once you understand that money is a tool, not a trophy, behavior shifts. You stop collecting. You start deploying. You stop worshipping stability. You start building resilience. Banks reward waiting because waiting creates dependency. Builders don't wait. They design. If your money doesn't move, neither will your life. Movement doesn't mean recklessness. It means intention. It means placing money inside structures that produce value, even when you are not present. Chapter 4: What an asset really is, and why most people own none. Most people believe they own assets. They say it confidently. My house is my asset. My car is my asset. My degree is my asset. But here's the truth that quietly breaks the illusion: if it takes money from you every month, it is not an asset. It is a responsibility. An asset does one thing reliably: it puts money back into your life without demanding your presence. That's it. No complexity. No hype. No jargon. If it doesn't pay you, it's not an asset. If it requires constant attention just to survive, it's not leverage. If it collapses when you stop, it's not freedom. This is why so many people feel stuck even though they own things. They own obligations disguised as progress. Ownership without income is maintenance, not wealth. Maintenance keeps you busy. Wealth creates space. Your home might appreciate someday, but it costs you now. Your car might be useful, but it drains you monthly. Your degree might open doors, but it expires without constant labor. These are tools, not assets. Real assets behave differently. They do not care if you're tired. They do not ask for overtime. They do not require motivation. They simply work. And this is why assets are misunderstood. Because they don't feel productive at first. They feel slow, invisible, quiet. Most people chase activity because activity gives instant feedback. Assets delay feedback. That delay filters people out. People confuse movement with progress because progress is silent at first. Building an asset looks like nothing is happening. No applause. No immediate reward. No reassurance. Just structure being laid. This is why asset builders look calm. They are not reacting. They are constructing. They understand that effort applied once correctly can echo for years. That's the entire principle behind work once, get paid forever. Forever doesn't mean magical. It means independent of time. It means the system does not reset to zero every morning. Assets are machines. And machines do not care how you feel. They execute. And once built, they remove pressure from your life. That pressure removal is the real reward. Not luxury. Not status. Control. Chapter 5: Why starting with zero is not a weakness, it's a filter. Most people believe they can't build assets because they don't have money. That belief alone keeps them trapped. Capital is helpful, but leverage is decisive. The most powerful assets in the modern world were not built with money first. They were built with skill, with insight, with distribution, with problem solving. Money came later as a byproduct. This is why starting with zero is not a disadvantage. It forces you to build assets that are structurally strong, not financially inflated. When money is scarce, you must rely on knowledge, creativity, execution, and consistency. Those qualities compound longer than capital ever does. Money can accelerate a weak system, but it cannot fix one. Starting broke forces you to design correctly. You cannot hide behind spending. You cannot outsource thinking. You must understand how value is created. And understanding is the rarest asset of all. This is why many wealthy people deliberately start new ventures as if they had nothing. They remove excess. They test fundamentals. They build assets that can survive without constant feeding. Consider skill-based assets. These are built from expertise that can be packaged, repeated, and distributed. Examples include knowledge turned into content, expertise turned into systems, experience turned into products. Once created, these assets do not require you to show up every time. They require creation once, distribution many times. That is leverage. If your skill can only earn money when you're present, it is underutilized. Skills are meant to be multiplied, not rented. This is why the internet changed everything. It turned distribution into leverage. It allowed one effort to reach thousands, then millions, then forever. But most people misuse this power. They create endlessly, but own nothing. They post but don't build systems. They generate attention but not assets. Attention without structure disappears. Structure turns attention into income. You don't need capital. You need clarity. Chapter 6: Why content is not the asset. Ownership is. This is where most people get it wrong. They hear stories of creators making money. They see posts going viral. They watch numbers climb and they assume content itself is the asset. It isn't. Content without ownership is labor disguised as leverage. If you create endlessly but do not own the system that pays you, you are still renting your effort. The platform benefits. The algorithm decides. The rules can change overnight, and your income disappears with them. This is why so many creators feel exhausted instead of free. They are productive but not protected. They are visible but not independent. Reach without control is fragility. An asset must be portable. It must exist beyond one platform, beyond one algorithm, beyond one source of traffic. Ownership means you control distribution. You control monetization. You control longevity. The wealthy build content around assets, not as the asset itself. They use content to feed systems. Systems like email lists, memberships, courses, software, licensing, intellectual property. These systems persist. They don't require constant reinvention. They do not reset every day. An asset pays you even when you stop creating. If stopping creation stops income, you built a job, not a system. Jobs can be well paid. They are still fragile. True assets are boring to build. They require planning. They require structure. They require patience. This is why most people avoid them. Boredom doesn't feel rewarding. But boredom is where leverage is built. The wealthy are comfortable being bored early so they can become later. Attention is temporary. Ownership is permanent. Chapter 7: Digital Products: Why Timing Matters More Than Talent. Digital products are one of the purest expressions of leverage. Create once. Distribute endlessly. Deliver automatically. And yet, most people fail at them. Not because they aren't smart. Not because they lack expertise. Not because the idea was bad. They fail because they misunderstand timing. Most people try to monetize before they stabilize value. They rush to sell before they've refined. They launch before they listen. They package information before they understand transformation. Digital products don't work because information is valuable. Information is everywhere. They work because clarity saves time. People don't pay for facts. They pay for shorter paths, fewer mistakes, clear sequencing, confidence. The asset is not the product. The asset is the distillation. This is why experience compounds so powerfully. The longer you practice something, the more compressible it becomes. And compression is leverage. The first version of a digital asset is supposed to be imperfect. Perfection delays leverage. Iteration builds it. The wealthy don't wait until something is flawless. They release something useful, then refine while it works. They understand that feedback is an asset. Silence is expensive. Digital products reward builders who observe patterns, who notice repeated questions, repeated struggles, repeated confusion. Those repetitions are signals. They point to where value can be packaged. If people keep asking you the same thing, you are sitting on an asset. Timing matters because trust must precede monetization. You don't sell first. You solve first. Then you structure the solution. This is why many successful digital assets look simple. They remove complexity. They replace chaos with order. Chapter 8: Automation is not freedom. Design is. Automation is one of the most misunderstood words in modern wealth building. People hear it and imagine escape. No work. No effort. No involvement. But automation alone does not create freedom. It often creates faster chaos. Automation magnifies whatever structure already exists, good or bad. If your system is unclear, automation multiplies confusion. If your offer is weak, automation accelerates rejection. If your process depends on constant fixing, automation locks you into maintenance. This is why many people automate themselves into exhaustion. They build funnels they don't understand. They connect tools they can't explain. They create workflows that require constant attention. And suddenly, instead of freedom, they have complexity. Complexity is not leverage. It's friction with better branding. The wealthy automate last, not first. They design manually. They observe behavior. They refine outcomes. Only then do they automate what already works. Automation is not about doing less. It's about removing decision fatigue. True automated assets do not require you to think every day. They execute pre-made decisions. They follow rules you already tested. They operate within boundaries you already defined. That is freedom. Not absence, but predictability. Predictability allows you to step away without anxiety. This is why the best automated businesses feel boring. They are stable. They do not spike emotionally. They do not crash dramatically. They do not require constant adrenaline. They simply run. And running systems return something priceless: mental space. Space to think. Space to choose. Space to design what comes next. If your automated income still requires daily emotional involvement, it is not finished. Finished systems feel quiet. They don't demand reassurance. They don't need attention. They just do what they were designed to do. Chapter 9: Why distribution is more powerful than creation. Most people believe value creation is the hard part. It isn't. Creation is difficult, but distribution decides outcomes. The person who controls the path to the audience controls the outcome, even if they didn't create the value. History proves this repeatedly. Those who own roads outearn those who built carts. Those who own storefronts outearn those who crafted goods. Those who own networks outearn those who produced content. Distribution is leverage because it compounds other people's effort. When you control distribution, you don't need to create everything. You curate. You organize. You position. And positioning is power. This is why platforms are so valuable. They don't create everything on them. They host. They connect value to attention. And every transaction passes through them. That pass-through is where wealth concentrates. Owning distribution turns time into an ally. Every new piece of value strengthens the channel. Every new participant increases reach. Every new interaction compounds visibility. Creation alone resets daily. Distribution accumulates. This is why the wealthiest builders focus early on lists, audiences, channels, and networks they own. Not because they want influence. Because influence reduces friction. Reduced friction increases conversion. Increased conversion creates stability. If you don't own distribution, You will always be negotiating from weakness. You depend on algorithms. You depend on platforms. You depend on gatekeepers. And dependence is the opposite of freedom. Owning distribution doesn't require millions of people. It requires direct access. 1,000 people you can reach directly is more powerful than 1,000,000 you can't. This is why email lists outlast social platforms, why communities outlast trends, why networks outlast products. Distribution turns assets into ecosystems, and ecosystems survive change. Chapter 10. The compounding most people never see. When people hear the word compounding, they think of charts. They think of interest rates. They think of numbers slowly curving upward. That's not the compounding that changes lives. The most powerful compounding is behavioral and structural. The right structure compounds effort even when motivation disappears. Most people rely on motivation. Motivation is volatile. It fades. It fluctuates. It disappears under stress. Structures do not. Structures execute regardless of mood. This is why compounding rarely looks impressive early. It looks boring, repetitive, uncelebrated, quiet. But quiet systems accumulate force. Every small improvement stacks. Every refinement reduces friction. Every repetition strengthens predictability. This is why wealthy builders obsess over process more than outcomes. Outcomes fluctuate. Process compounds. Compounding rewards consistency more than intensity. You don't need massive effort once. You need sustainable effort repeatedly. This is why people burn out chasing breakthroughs. They spike effort then collapse. Compounding requires pacing. Pacing is not weakness. It is endurance by design. If your system cannot survive a bad week, it is not built to compound. True assets forgive inconsistency. They tolerate imperfection. They keep working while you recover. This is why people who build assets feel calmer over time. Pressure decreases as momentum increases. The opposite happens with labor-based income. Pressure increases as fatigue accumulates. Compounding flips that equation. Effort front-loaded. Relief back-loaded. Compounding is invisible until it isn't. Most people quit before the curve bends, not because it doesn't work, but because they stop too early. Chapter 11. Why patience is an active skill, not a personality trait. Most people believe patience is something you either have or don't. They think some people are naturally calm, naturally disciplined, naturally able to wait. That belief is another trap. Patience is not a trait. It is a system you build around yourself. No one wakes up patient. They wake up protected. Protected from urgency. Protected from constant decision-making. Protected from environments that reward impulse. The wealthy are not more patient by nature. They design lives that require less reaction. Reaction is what destroys patience. Alerts. Deadlines. Noise. Comparison. All of it forces decisions before clarity arrives. Patience disappears when everything feels urgent. So the question is not how do I become more patient? The question is how do I remove false urgency from my life? Urgency is usually manufactured, not real. Most deadlines are arbitrary. Most pressure is inherited. Most now or never moments are marketing. The system thrives on urgency because urgency collapses reflection. Reflection creates independence. Independence breaks dependence. This is why wealthy builders slow things down intentionally. They delay responses. They reduce inputs. They schedule thinking time not as luxury, but as strategy. Speed is useful only after direction is certain. Before direction is clear, speed magnifies mistakes. Patience creates clarity. Clarity creates precision. Precision creates leverage. This is why people who escape the time for money trap often feel like life slows down. It hasn't. Noise has been removed. And when noise is removed, patience returns naturally. Chapter 12. Why smart risk is the price of permanent income. Most people hear the word risk and immediately tense up. They imagine loss. They imagine failure. They imagine regret. So they avoid risk altogether. And in doing so, they unknowingly choose the most dangerous path of all. Avoiding all risk guarantees one outcome: permanent dependence on work. There is no risk-free life. There is only visible risk and hidden risk. Visible risk looks like trying something new. Hidden risk looks like relying on one income source for decades. The system trains people to fear visible risk because visible risk is easier to control socially. People can warn you, judge you, talk you out of it. Hidden risk, on the other hand, feels safe. A paycheck, a routine, a familiar schedule. But hidden risk compounds silently. Industries change. Skills expire. Health fluctuates. Opportunities disappear. And one day the risk reveals itself all at once. The wealthy do not avoid risk. They design it. Smart risk is asymmetric. Downside is limited. Upside is uncapped. This is the only type of risk worth taking. Building an asset on the side while keeping your job is asymmetric. Worst case, you lose time you were already trading. Best case, you reduce dependence permanently. Creating a digital product from existing knowledge is asymmetric. Worst case, no one buys it. Best case, it sells while you sleep. Building distribution is asymmetric. Worst case, you gain skills and relationships. Best case, you own leverage for life. The wealthy stack asymmetric risks. They don't gamble. They test. If failure cannot destroy you, it is not dangerous. It is educational. This is why asset builders run experiments, not leaps. Small bets. Low downside. Clear learning. They never stake survival on one move. They keep the floor secure while building ceilings. Chapter 13. Focus. Why spreading yourself thin kills. Leverage. There is a mistake that quietly ruins more asset builders than lack of money ever could. It feels productive. It feels ambitious. It feels responsible. But it destroys momentum. That mistake is divided focus. Leverage is built by depth, not by width. Most people try to build 5 things at once. A side hustle here. A content idea there. An investment somewhere else. A new platform every few months. They mistake motion for progress. And progress never arrives. Not because they are incapable, but because compounding requires continuity. Continuity requires focus. The wealthy are not chasing more opportunities. They are eliminating distractions. They understand something fundamental. Every new project taxes your attention before it pays you back. Attention is the most limited resource you have. More limited than time. More limited than money. Because attention determines how both are used. This is why asset builders obsess over one thing at a time. One system. One channel. One asset. They finish before they expand. Focus creates speed by removing choice. When choices disappear, execution accelerates. You stop debating. You stop second-guessing. You stop restarting. You simply build. This is why the most dangerous moment in asset building is early success. A little progress creates temptation. New ideas appear. New possibilities open up. New distractions feel justified. And suddenly the original system is abandoned before it stabilizes. What you don't finish cannot compound. Compounding requires completion. Completion requires restraint. The wealthy restrain themselves intentionally. They say no to good ideas so great ones can mature. They delay expansion until systems are boringly reliable. They understand that freedom comes from finished machines, not endless prototypes. Chapter 14. Why early comfort is the silent killer of permanent income. There is a moment that feels like relief. Income starts to rise. Pressure begins to ease. Life gets a little smoother. And that moment is more dangerous than struggle. Comfort arrived before the system was finished. Early wins feel earned. A few sales. A small recurring payment. A bump in monthly income. It feels like permission to relax. Upgrade the lifestyle. Reduce the discipline. Ease the pace. But assets are fragile before they mature. They need reinforcement, not reward. This is why the wealthy delay comfort. Not because they don't want it. Because they understand sequence. Comfort before stability creates dependency. Stability before comfort creates permanence. Lifestyle expands faster than leverage. Lifestyle upgrades are immediate. Leverage compounds slowly. If you increase expenses before systems are durable, you reintroduce pressure. Pressure brings urgency. Urgency forces bad decisions. Bad decisions dismantle leverage. And suddenly you're working again, just at a higher income level. This is how people escape once, then quietly rebuild the same cage with nicer furniture. The wealthy protect their early assets fiercely. They keep expenses flat. They reinvest surplus. They maintain discipline longer than feels necessary. Not because they are afraid. Because they are patient. Delay comfort long enough and you won't need discipline later. Discipline is expensive emotionally. Freedom is cheap once built. Chapter 15. Why scaling too early breaks what could have lasted forever. Scaling is seductive. More users. More traffic. More money. It feels like progress. But scale is not growth. Scale is pressure. Scaling amplifies weaknesses faster than it amplifies strength. If a system is unclear, scale creates confusion. If a process is fragile, scale creates stress. If a business relies on you emotionally, scale exhausts you. This is why scaling too early doesn't speed freedom. It delays it. The wealthy treat scale like fire. Useful. Powerful. Dangerous if uncontrolled. They don't ask, how fast can this grow? They ask, how strong is this without me? Strength comes first. Scale comes later. A system that cannot survive low volume will not survive high volume. High volume reveals every flaw. Customer confusion multiplies. Support issues explode. Decision fatigue intensifies. And suddenly the asset feels heavier than the job it was meant to replace. This is where many people retreat. They scale. Burn out. And conclude, this doesn't work. But it wasn't the idea. It was the timing. The wealthy let systems harden before expanding them. They repeat processes until boredom arrives. They remove themselves gradually. They test failure points quietly. Only when the system feels dull do they trust it with growth. Boredom is the signal that a system is ready to scale. If it still feels exciting, it's still fragile. Excitement usually means unpredictability. Predictability is leverage. Chapter 16. Delegation, the moment income finally detaches from you. There is a belief that keeps more people trapped than lack of money ever could. That belief sounds responsible. It sounds competent. It sounds mature. If I don't do it myself, it won't be done right. That sentence feels safe. It is also the ceiling. If your system requires you to function, you did not build an asset. You built a role. Roles are jobs. Jobs expire. Assets persist. Most people fail at delegation because they misunderstand its purpose. They think delegation is about convenience, about freeing time, about offloading tasks they don't enjoy. That's not what delegation is. Delegation is about removing yourself as a dependency. And that is uncomfortable because identity is often tied to control, to being needed, to being the one who knows, to being the problem solver. But being indispensable is not power. It is fragility disguised as importance. Control does not scale. Systems do. The wealthy do not delegate because they are lazy. They delegate because they are serious about permanence. They ask different questions. What decision can I make once instead of daily? What rule can replace my judgment? What process can replace my memory? Delegation starts with documentation, not people. You don't delegate tasks. You delegate decisions. Once decisions are defined, tasks can be executed by anyone. This is why early delegation often fails. People try to outsource execution without designing clarity. They hire before they standardize. They assign before they define. And chaos follows. Then they conclude delegation doesn't work. What failed was design. If you cannot explain the task, you cannot delegate it. Delegation forces clarity. Clarity strengthens systems. Systems remove pressure. This is the moment when income truly detaches from hours. When something works without your involvement. When effort echoes instead of repeating. Chapter 17, Why Success Triggers Self-Sabotage, and How to Stop It. This chapter is uncomfortable because it reveals something few people want to admit. Many people don't fail before success. They fail after it. Not publicly. Quietly. Gradually. When income detaches from effort, unresolved identity resurfaces. For years, struggle defined you. Effort proved your worth. Business validated your existence. Exhaustion made you feel necessary. Then suddenly things work. Money arrives without urgency. Pressure fades. Time opens up. And instead of relief, something unexpected appears. Discomfort. Because your identity was built to survive chaos, not calm. This is why people unconsciously sabotage assets. They stop protecting systems. They introduce unnecessary complexity. They chase stimulation instead of stability. Not because they want to fail. Because stability feels unfamiliar. Many people are addicted to urgency, not work. Urgency gives meaning. Urgency creates importance. Urgency distracts from deeper questions. When urgency disappears, silence arrives. And silence exposes unresolved direction. So people reintroduce chaos. They start new projects unnecessarily. They over-optimize. They expand prematurely. And slowly the asset becomes heavy again. The wealthy expect this phase. They don't panic when it arrives. They prepare for it. They understand that emotional discipline matters more after success than before it. If you don't decide how you want your life to feel, success will decide for you. Successful asset builders design constraints. They limit growth intentionally. They cap obligations. They protect simplicity. Not because they lack ambition. Because they value peace. Peace is the dividend of leverage. And dividends are meant to be protected. Chapter 18, Reclaiming Time After Years of Selling It. There is a strange moment that arrives once income finally detaches from effort. It's not celebration. It's not relief. It's disorientation. Because for most of your life, time belonged to someone else. Schedules decided it. Deadlines consumed it. Obligations carved it into pieces. And now time returns unstructured. unassigned, open. You don't just free time. You must relearn how to live inside it. People think money is the hard part. It isn't. Time is. When your life revolved around earning, time had instructions. Now it doesn't. And the absence of instructions feels uncomfortable. Some people feel it immediately. They create noise. They invent urgency. They stay busy just in case. Not because they need to. Because stillness feels unfamiliar. A rushed mind cannot enjoy free time. It will try to escape it. This is why some people with passive income still feel restless. They escaped labor but not conditioning. Their nervous system is still calibrated to pressure, so it looks for it. True freedom requires recalibration. Not externally. Internally. The wealthy learn to slow time down again. They stop scheduling every moment. They let boredom return. They allow silence not as indulgence, but as healing. Free time is not meant to be filled. It is meant to be felt. This is where creativity returns. Where clarity emerges. Where you begin choosing instead of reacting. Many people escape financially and remain mentally trapped. They don't know how to exist without urgency, so they recreate it. But freedom is not excitement. It's stability. It's knowing tomorrow is not a threat. It's waking up without the need to rush. Chapter 19, When Money Stops Being the Goal and Meaning Takes Its Place. There is a quiet shift that happens when income finally becomes stable. Not abundant. Not excessive. Just reliable without your presence. The pressure lifts. And when pressure lifts, a deeper question surfaces. What am I building this for? Most people never reach this question because they are too busy surviving. But once assets do their job, once income works without you, the mind looks for direction. When money stops being urgent, purpose becomes unavoidable. This is not about chasing passion. It's about alignment. Alignment between how you spend your time, what you give your energy to, and what you want your life to feel like. The system trained you to believe money was the finish line. It isn't. Money is the buffer. It removes fear so choice can exist. And choice is where meaning lives. This is why some people with passive income still feel empty. They solve the financial problem but never ask the existential one. Assets remove pressure. They do not automatically create fulfillment. Fulfillment must be chosen. Freedom reveals who you are. It does not define you. When survival ends, character takes over. Some people choose creation. Some choose contribution. Some choose mastery. Some choose simplicity. There is no correct answer. Only honest ones. The wealthy who feel fulfilled do not rush to fill their days. They explore. They experiment. They ask, what problems am I willing to care about now that I don't have to? That question is powerful because it shifts motivation from fear to intention. The highest form of income is not money. It is the ability to choose what matters. Chapter 20, Why Contribution Stabilizes Wealth More Than Growth Ever Will. Once money stops being urgent, once income no longer depends on your presence, a subtle instability can appear. Not financial. Emotional. Because for years, progress was measured by accumulation. More income. More growth. More upside. But accumulation alone does not anchor a life. Wealth without contribution feels directionless. Contribution is not charity. It is not obligation. It is not sacrifice. Contribution is circulation. It gives excess energy somewhere to go. And energy